Hi, friends. Welcome back to Burn Stress, Lose Weight. I want to first take a second to wish you a very, very, very happy New Year. If you're listening to this podcast episode in real time, it is New Year's week. I hope that you are taking this opportunity to reflect on this past year. That's the entire intention of this week's podcast episode, of taking a look at this last year through a gentle gaze, through a lens of curiosity and belief in yourself. Because one thing I have seen time and time again, the harder we believe in ourselves and the harder we advocate for the life we want, the higher the likelihood that you're going to make it happen. And I've seen it happen on both ends of the spectrum. One of my favorite things on this podcast is to share my real personal stories, real moments where I go completely off track and experience all the epic fails or embarrassment or rejection or discouragement, because there is no freedom from that. I think sometimes we assume that when you achieve your goal weight that you're quote unquote fixed, or you never have to face real life obstacles and that's it. It's like a one and done situation. And that is kind of a painful way to think about our body goals and our life journey. So my goal on this podcast, first and foremost, is to start treating ourselves like our own best friends again, to treat ourselves like a human being who sometimes messes up and sometimes goes off track and deserves to get back on, who deserves to become a fierce advocate of the life you want on the scale and off, and to share science and skills and strategies and stories to help you get there. If you're brand new to me, I know that we have some new listeners. Hello, I am Dr. Priyanka Venugopal. I'm a board certified OBGYN physician turned stress and weight loss coach for professional women who self-identify as overachievers. I have been on a wild mission the past multiple weeks to really bring you some of the key skills and strategies that I think get in the way of overachievers in achieving their wild goals. Today's podcast episode is going to be part 2 of how to troubleshoot any fail. So if you did not listen to last week's podcast episode, I really want to encourage that you completely pause right now, pause the episode, go back to last week's episode, which is part 1 on how to troubleshoot any fail. I think it is really important that we first and foremost validate that fails are not a unique experience. I think we logically know this, especially for an overachiever who's been through school and higher education, and you've noticed this probably in your career or with your kids. We know that missteps, mistakes, fails, going backwards, quote unquote backwards, is normal. However, there's a part of us, the overachiever, that also believes that we should never fail and never go backwards and never have missteps. So I really want to encourage, first and foremost, moving into the new year, before you break out that brand new planner or the spreadsheet to think about your goals, I really want us to do this deeper work of looking at this last year through a lens of curiosity and 100% responsibility. That's what today's episode is going to be about: how to really take responsibility over your results in a way that treats you like you're a human. Just to do a really quick recap, the intention of last week's episode was highlighting the 5 mindset elements, the 5 things that you need to stop doing to achieve wild success next year. So before you open up your planner for next year, think about your game plan and the strategy. There are 5 things that you need to stop doing to make space for your success. The very first thing was take quitting completely off the table. This is a mindset thing. It's coming in like a dog with a bone with your goals. Stop making your body goals like they're a hobby. Make them non-negotiable. Make quitting off the table. It doesn't matter how busy your life gets, how many things you have, how much time you have. Treating your body like a non-negotiable is going to be one of the key game changers for you hitting your goal next year. The second one was to watch the negative commentary. Whenever you happen to go off track, gain a pound, have a misstep, forget yourself, just remember you're a human with a messy human brain. Instead of having thoughts like, see, I knew it, there you go again, or I knew you couldn't do it, or I knew your wins were a fluke, catch the soundtrack that you have about the misstep or the fail. Number 3 was to become really aware of your stress archetype. I got into this in November. We broke down the 4 different stress archetypes that are getting in the way for overachievers. We all have them. They're very normal. But when we're unaware of what our natural stress archetypes are, we start to react to our stresses. We react to the pound up on the scale like it's a dark cloud following us around, rather than learning and having a script for responding. Number four is to stop telling yourself, it's a thought you have, that you cannot handle big feelings. I know, especially as an overachiever, you're used to feeling stressed all the time, but there comes a point along the way, it's usually on Friday night or Saturday afternoon, or it could be a Tuesday at 2 o'clock, that you have the thought, this is too much. This is too much stress for me. This is too hard for me. And it's simply because as overachievers, we don't like feeling inadequate, behind, and confused. And because of that, our brain comes up with a very convincing story that some emotions are just too much. Stop telling yourself that story. And the very last one was to stop blaming your time or your personality type. The longer that you believe that your time was the reason that you didn't achieve your goal this year, the longer your time is going to stay a problem. The longer you believe that it's just who you are, you're just not a planner, you're just not someone who makes decisions in advance, you're just not organized. As long as you have those thoughts about yourself, the lowest denominator thoughts, you're arguing for your limitations, the longer you're going to keep them. So if you did not listen to last week's episode, I want to encourage you to make sure you head over there, go listen to that episode, and then we're going to get into this week's episode, which is going to talk about the 5 things to start doing. I touched on some of these last week, but the 5 things to start doing to plan for guaranteed success this year. And before I get into that, I want to make sure that you know we are having a live training on January 11th. It's a Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm breaking down the systems that you need for complete freedom to hit your weight loss goal and get your time back. This training is going to be for you if you want to be done with stale PDF plans, eat this, eat that, don't eat this, red food, green food, good food, bad food. If you want to get out of the mentality that calories in, calories out is your strategy. I mean, if it was, I think it would have worked by now. Then I really want to encourage you to join me live on this training. We're going to get into the systems that are going to create wins for you. They're proven strategy that are science informed, that's going to get you time back so you can stop overthinking, second guessing, and ruminating on this problem and have simple systems that you don't have to keep on thinking about again and again. You make decisions once, you plug them into your life, and you're going to start experiencing wins. You can go grab your seat over at burnstressloseweight.com/training, register for it. Make sure you check your email inbox, including your promotions folder, drag and drop us into your inbox so you get all of the details that you need. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the 5 things that you need to start doing this year as you're planning for success this year, as you're imagining what you want for yourself. These are the things to start doing. The very first thing, and this is like maybe item number 0, it's not one of my 5 things, but it's kind of a foundational thing. Get specific and bold with your goal. Last week, I talked about how I set this 60-minute Stairmaster goal when I could basically only do 5 minutes. What that means is I didn't know for sure. I wasn't confident that I could do 60 minutes. I had never done 60 minutes. I actually had no evidence that I could do it. I had no confidence that I could do it. I had never done it before. I was huffing and puffing on the Stairmaster, but I knew that it was a goal that mattered to me. And simply setting a bold goal that gave me direction was actually the way that I programmed my entire planning process for the year. The way that I describe goals to my clients inside Burn, Stress, Lose Weight, which is my group coaching program, is I think about them like lighthouses. Sometimes we can get really hung up on the micro details, and we're so scared of setting goals because we're afraid of not hitting them that we stay really vague. We'll have a goal like get healthy or eat less, move more, or eat more protein, or cut out all the flour and sugar. We have these very vague goals or vague habits without having an idea for what the end point is. Why do we want to eat more protein? Why do we actually want to maybe cut out sugar or take a break from highly processed foods? Why do we want to achieve the goal? I call this a lighthouse because simply plugging in with some specificity where you want to go by the end of the year is going to give your brain direction. I think about this like you're programming your GPS with an address. The more specifically you can program the GPS, the more clear your directions are going to be. So step 0 on how to plan for inevitable success in this year is to give yourself the gift of dreaming big, dreaming boldly, let yourself go huge, and imagine what would feel like such a win for you a year from now. Once we've done step 0, which I think is kind of foundational of letting yourself dream big, letting yourself believe in yourself, and knowing you're going to have your own back, even if and when it gets messy, is going to be the game changer for your entire year. Let's get into the 5 specific things that I encourage you to start doing doing that I found this past year made a huge difference. As I shared last week, I had epic fails in 2023 and 2024. And because I learned from those experiences through a lot of what we talk about on this podcast, I was able to turn it around this year. These were the 5 things that I started doing this year in a very real way that was the lighter fluid to me having success this year, and why this year, for the first time in a few years, I'm reporting this year was not an epic fail. Number one was actually having a system that treated me like a human and not a robot. I talked about this a little bit last week, but I actually built in vacation weeks, off weeks, break weeks. I didn't imagine that I was going to have success every single week. So my expectations were lined up with reality. Building in white space and blank space and those buffer spaces as a norm, not an exception, gave myself a sense of safety that even if I happen to go off track, it's okay. It's not a problem. It's built into the calendar. Number two is I had to have systems that were simple and repeatable. This is a big thing we're going to be talking about on the live training. I really encourage that you come. Having simple systems that are repeatable is going to be the game changer for overachievers who are overextended. If you're a professional woman, you likely have many responsibilities at work and at home. The last thing you want is for weight loss to feel like another full-time job, another drag, another thing you have to keep thinking about every single day. This is one of the biggest wins that my clients report, the biggest wins that they experience. It's not just that they're losing weight. My clients tell me that they're getting time back because they're not remaking decisions day after day, week after week. Having simple systems that you make once that you can fold into your real life, that you can just have on rinse and repeat, is how you get back 10 hours of time per week and actually lose the weight you want. Number three, we have to have a system in place for when you really do fall behind, how to make hard decisions. I talked about this last week when I realized in the fall I was fully off my plan. I was not going to hit the 60-minute mark the way that I wanted. I had to have a framework in place that helped me make a hard call. Was I going to still try to get to 60 minutes, but maybe slow down? Or was I going to lower the number of minutes that I did on the Stairmaster, but at the pace I wanted? Sometimes it is that hard decision, being willing to adjust the plan, knowing how to make a tweak to the system, that can feel really uncomfortable, particularly for the overextended professional who's like, I have so much to do. I don't want to have to deal with this. That is success entitlement, right? So we have to understand that because real life is going to happen, messy moments are going to happen, we cannot have entitlement around our success. We have to do the work of troubleshooting when we go off track. And again, a lot of this can feel like a bigger job because of the thoughts we have. If you think that troubleshooting is hard, it stays hard rather than really flipping this around and leaning into making some hard decisions. The last thing, and this is one of the most important systems and decisions and strategies that I folded into 2025 that I think actually reprogrammed my brain, because as I've shared on the podcast, I've never been someone who personally says I love the gym. That's never been my identity. I've actually always had the opposite. I'm always like, I hate the gym. I'm not an athletic person. I was never into sports as a kid. I've never had the identity of someone who loves the gym. However, one of the things that I started doing this past year was every single time that I went for my strength training workout or I did the Stairmaster, every single time I paired that with going into the sauna. Now, this was a very physical, visceral practice. Even if I did it only for 5 minutes, I would go into the sauna every single time after the gym, and I actually had a gratitude practice in my mind. So I would say things like, I am so proud of you for doing that hard session. That was a really heavy lift. Wow, we really hit the next mile marker on the Stairmaster. Actually having thoughts like this, talking to myself about how proud I was for showing up in the process, started to release dopamine and oxytocin in my brain. So I wasn't just feeling good for doing what I said. I was actually programming my brain and retraining my wires and retraining my brain circuits to crave going to the gym. This is the craziest thing. And I would say that this one system of building in this gratitude practice, again, for me, it was very visceral. Going to the sauna, it was very physical. It felt amazing. It was how I was rewarding myself for the hard work that I did. I actually, at some point along the way this past year, started craving going to the gym. If you could have told me this a few years ago that one day you're going to actually want to go to the gym, I would have looked at you like you had two heads. So if it's possible for me to change that self identity, I want you to really sit with the idea that it's possible for you to change any identity. Building in a gratitude practice that is visceral, very real, that is a reward for doing the hard work, the tedious, sometimes boring work, is how you train your brain to follow through in those moments that you don't feel like it. I always like to remind my clients that dopamine, which we get in spades when we snack or scroll or procrastinate, we have a huge flood of dopamine when we do that. It's like a feel good chemical. It's also a learning chemical. So every time our brain releases dopamine, we are learning a lesson. This is why we go to snacking and scrolling as our quick breaks from life. Imagine if you could start to have a gratitude practice that was rewarding you for doing the hard work. And imagine that you were able to separate that from food or alcohol. This is a key piece. We have to have reward systems in place that don't require or rely on snacking or alcohol or food. And when we don't have this element of the process, when you don't have a reward system for the hard work you're doing over the course of the week, over the course of your month, over the course of your year, it's really no surprise that your brain will steal it in the form of snacking and scrolling. So I'm like spending a few extra minutes on this because this is a system that is missing from so many overachievers is strategies as they're thinking about the new year. I want you to really plan for a gratitude practice that feels like a reward. That includes the thoughts you have about yourself, actually telling yourself in your mind how proud you are of yourself, but also create a ritual around it. Have it feel really nice. For me, it's the sauna. For you, it might be lighting a candle and having a hot cup of tea or doing something that feels really caring and loving for you, where you're celebrating yourself for the work. Now, I have to say that this year, this is the first year in 3 years that I'm reporting what I'm calling a success, right? So in 2023, massive epic fail, 2024, massive epic fail. I broke them down in every New Year episode, exactly why I had it. While this year wasn't perfect, it was built on the back of those 2 years worth of failing. And I think that this is where we deprive ourselves of creating momentum. I feel like I've spent so many years rinsing and repeating the same wins and losses because I wasn't learning from my mistakes. And that is the intention of last week and this week's episode. Give yourself the gift of learning from your mistakes through a compassionate and curious lens. While you hold blame and shame and judgment over where you are, because I know you hate feeling behind and you hate feeling inadequate, it is the reason that you keep repeating a lot of your results. This leads me to a few mindset elements that I'm going to encourage that you start doing. It's going to feel hard to do these things. It's going to feel a little bit vulnerable to do these things if you let shame, blame, or criticism stay on the table. So step zero is to give yourself complete permission to put those aside. That can be for a different conversation, that can be for a different day. But as you're assessing and evaluating your results of the year, shame, blame, and criticism literally have zero role. The very first thing to start doing is to take 100% responsibility on the gaps that you had this year. And this is the hardest piece of the entire process. Because I know you hate feeling behind or inadequate or confused, you hate feeling disappointed or discouraged, this is where most overachievers will take a fast pass to shame and blame. I want to encourage you to rewind, come back to that moment where you're looking at the results that maybe you don't love, where you're looking at the misstep, the pound up, the inadequacy. And this is the moment I want to really invite you to grow your discomfort tolerance. Sit with the feeling, stay with it, subtract the shame and the blame, and lean in. If you took 100% responsibility over where the gaps came from, now we can start to ask high quality questions. This is the second thing to start doing. Instead of having open ended rhetorical questions like, why did I even do that? In that tone, ask high currency questions through the lens of playful curiosity. Ask yourself, where was I not making clear decisions? Where was I not being simple in my process? Where was I looking for a fresh start rather than leaning into a discomfort? Where was I sacrificing guilt-free rest and joy? And where did I end up stealing it with snacking and scrolling? When you ask high currency questions from a curious place, you're going to get high quality answers. And we want those answers to help you plan for the future. The third thing to start doing this year is to make hard decisions. This is the part that feels uncomfortable. This is doing the tedious work, the sometimes boring work, the work that feels no fun. At the end of the day, results worth having, the results you want for your body, in your career, in your relationships, are on the other side of making some hard decisions and then following through on them in those moments that you don't feel like it. The next thing, and this is a mindset one that I touched on last week, but I wanted to bring back here, make your goals non negotiable, not a hobby. And this might mean that it gets inconvenient at times. I have seen from my own personal experience and what I've seen, and from what my clients tell me, when you are taken care of, when your body is taken care of, when you feel your best, you get to show up as your best self in your career and at home and with your kids. So if you have thoughts like taking care of yourself is selfish or indulgent or frivolous, I just want you to see that that is programming. It's societal programming that you somehow need to be self-sacrificing to be worthy or valuable, when in fact it simply runs you down. And this is going to be a mindset element that might be challenging for some of you, but it's really worth looking at. And the very last one, and we've been talking about this on the podcast over the course of many months now, when you uncover your strategy gap, the decision that maybe you left hanging, following through in the moment that you had an urge to go off track, let yourself learn from that information. And rather than making it an intellectual exercise that you simply think about, actually take action from what you learn. It's actually crazy. When we take fast action on the information we learn, your brain starts to learn new pathways and new habits. And that's one that we often leave on the table. We might learn because we're doing this intellectual exercise, and passively thinking about something and planning feels really good. It feels really productive. But your results have to also come by taking action. And this is where I recommend don't overthink your decisions, don't overthink executing. The longer you spend overthinking something, the more discomfort you create for yourself. Take the information, make the decision, and take action quickly. I have a whole podcast episode on how to stop negotiating. It's from a few weeks ago. I encourage you to go and listen to that one. But this is where you might notice yourself wanting to feel completely motivated all the time, or completely aligned or excited all the time to take action. But if you want consistent results where this time next year you can say that it was a massive win for you, it means being consistent in those tiny moments that you don't always feel like it, and not making that a problem. I hope that this two-part episode helped walk through the important things to stop doing and the important things to start building into your strategy as you envision your goals for next year. I don't want anyone ever listening to this podcast to come into the new year with this fresh start energy, because we deprive ourselves of hundreds of hours of golden lessons that you can learn from this year and from years past. This can be sometimes quite challenging to do on your own because it can be hard to separate fact from story. That's where a lot of overachievers get tripped up. We have a lot of negative biases. We have a lot of stories about our results and our abilities to achieve the goals we have. But this is why working with a coach, having an accountability system, having a proven process that takes you from the start to the finish is such an important part of the process. I want to encourage you to not DIY your dream goals. I know that I have done this myself, so I understand how compelling it is to DIY everything. It's maybe even been a badge of honor for you as someone who does things on your own all the time, and it's been kind of a source of pride. But I have also found that sometimes the goals that have been challenging for you deserve to have support. And I think that you deserve to have that support at the highest level. I hope you enjoyed this two-part episode, how to troubleshoot any fail. You can really take this two-part episode into any part of your life, but especially your body goal. And I really want you to run with it. Make sure you join me on my live training. It's happening on January 11th. You can go grab your seat over at burnstressloseweight.com/training. Come live. We're going to have a live attendance bonus for anyone that comes because attending live is just a little bit more special. I hope you'll have an amazing New Year's. I'm so grateful that you're here and that we're on this journey together. This podcast has always been one of my most favorite ways of communicating and sharing story, concepts, frameworks, and methods with you. And I hope that you find it valuable. If you have been enjoying this podcast episode, I would absolutely love it if you could take a moment to leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. It would be a lovely way for me to end my new year to see some comments from all of you in what you're loving about this podcast. It lets me know what to do more of, what to create more of. And when I know that you're enjoying the podcast, it really does help me create more content for you that hopefully you find helpful. I hope you guys all have an amazing week, an amazing New Year's, and I will see you at the next one. Bye.